Hello everyone and welcome to the Holliston High School Counseling presentation of the nuts and bolts of applying to college. This is a presentation that we've been doing now for 3 years. We started out by presenting just to parents, and this year have opened it up to students with great feedback. A lot of the students who have watched this so far have said it has lessened their anxiety in terms of knowing how all the pieces of the application process come together to make the final application that gets reviewed by the colleges and universities. So we hope that you find it equally helpful. I'm going to start by looking at this infographic, and throughout the presentation I will keep coming back to this to explain the various pieces of the application. What I'd like you to think about when you think about a complete college application is that it's like a recipe. It's like making a meal. The key pieces that make up a complete application: transcript, test scores, letters of recommendation, the actual application itself, do not all get received into the admissions office at the same time. Just as with a recipe, you don't put all your ingredients into the pot at the same time. They happen not necessarily in any certain order, and they do not happen all at once. A lot of these processes are triggered by human interaction, so even though they are digitally processed, there are humans on the other side who are making that processing happen and downloading the information that gets sent. So it's very important to remember that there is this common misperception that because the application process is largely digital, that things sort of magically fall into place. And hopefully this presentation will help you better understand who is involved in what and how things land where they're supposed to land. So we're going to start with the bubble here in the 11 o'clock position about filling out the application. So we're talking about the common application, or the Common App as we refer to it. We're talking about potentially the Coalition app, or a college's own institutional application, which is available on their website. Now, how do you know which one to pick? How do you know what a college offers? And the first clue around that is, we're going to go to Naviance here. I'm in a test account. I'm in a colleges I'm applying to list in Naviance, and Naviance is used to send transcripts and documentation to colleges. And you will see here under submission type, I'm going to show you the different types of applications. So the institutional application is right here, shown by this icon that is a desktop computer, and it is blank in the center. And anytime you see that icon, it indicates that that college has its own application on its own website. So you need to go to the website, create an account, and start the application there. The desktop computer with the red CA in the middle, this is the Common application, and most colleges take the Common App these days. Thousands of schools take it, and it really is very popular and a very easy tool to use. It's been around for a long time. When you see a question mark like this in a desktop icon, it means that the college offers a variety of means for applying to that institution. So it may offer the Common App. It may also offer the Coalition application. It may also offer its own institutional application. And when you see a question mark like that, Naviance is prompting you to indicate how you are applying. And that's where you would, use the 3 ellipses over here. Because I'm in a test account and I haven't logged in, you can't see the link, but there would be a link to edit this information so that you could tell Naviance how you are applying to that college. And that is a really critical piece of information that is needed in order for your transcripts and your other documentation to make it to the college intact. If, for example, you indicate here that you're applying via Common App, but then change your mind and apply using the institutional application, there is a good chance that that college will not receive your supporting documentation for your college application. It has happened before, so it's important, really important, to make sure that whatever information in Naviance there is accurate. And a lot of these sort of technical pieces are really behind the scenes. It's nothing that the high school is doing or that the college is doing. It's just that the technology is set up in such a way that the information has to be accurate in Naviance for it to be sent correctly. So if we go back to our infographic, once you've completed the application, and part of the application is the essay, so the essay is really about putting your heart on paper. It's your voice in the application. You want to walk into the room. Remember that you are writing this for a stranger. And it's helpful to find somebody who actually doesn't know you that well to review your essay and really sum you up in a sentence or two based on their read of your essay, because that's who you're writing for. You want to write, edit, rewrite, edit. You want to make it as perfect as possible. And when I say perfect, I mean grammatically. Content-wise, really, you can write about anything that you want to. I've heard a lot of students say, that's a bad topic, I've been told I shouldn't write about this topic, and it really is all about how you present it. It's all in the presentation, and your school counselors are here to be able to help you with that. But I want you to think of this not as an essay, but as a personal statement. It is not a traditional essay as you have been writing in English all these years. This is a very different piece of writing, and it should have a lot of heart in it. And really what it is designed to do is to share with the admissions officers who you are, how did you become who you are, what makes you tick, that sort of thing. So the essay is a huge piece of the application and becomes even more important during these COVID times when we don't have spring grades and updated GPA since January of junior year. All of those pieces are now a little bit fuzzy, and as such, the admissions reps are going to be looking more towards the essay, more towards the letters of recommendation to really figure things out. So the essay is part of this entire application, and in the Common App, you see that there's a writing section. The other thing you want to keep in mind is supplements. So when we're thinking about supplements, and not every college requires a supplement to their application, you want to look at what is optional, because truly many of the supplements that are out there for applications are not optional. They are actually tests, right? So every now and then you'll see a supplement that says, why do you want to go to our college or university? And when it says optional for a question like that, if you don't answer it, it's an easy way for the college to say, well, that student clearly isn't interested in our university. This was just an easy apply for them, and that's an easy denial. So it's an easy way for them to really sift through the applications and determine level of interest. You want to make sure you're planning your time wisely. So the more competitive schools out there, the Ivy League schools and that kind of tier below it, they often have supplements to their application that talk about speaking to the values of the college or university, or sharing your thoughts on a certain topic. And you want to plan your time accordingly and make sure that those supplements are as buttoned up as your personal statement for the application. So be mindful of that. Every now and then you're going to see an option for a supplement that is a resume. So for example, University of Rhode Island in the past has asked for an optional upload of your resume as a supplement. That truly is optional. However, in a case like that, the resumes are usually asked for because the activities section on the Common Application has a limited character count and doesn't provide a lot of space for you to really expand on your activities. And some students' activities are a huge part of their life, and they may want to say more about it. So a resume in a typical Word doc would be a good avenue to be able to share more information. It's also nice because they look at thousands of these applications, and it's a different format than they're used to. Now we're looking here at sort of the 7 o'clock position on the infographic. Student takes and sends test scores. Now, for many of our students in 2020, 2021, there are a lot of you who have not taken the SATs or ACTs because you have not been afforded that opportunity because test centers have closed, and that is fine. There is a frenzy going on right now around taking the tests. However, most of the colleges that we are aware of are going test optional, and truly they cannot penalize you for not being able to take the test. It is truly out of your control and out of your hands. However, if you have taken the test and you do want to send your test scores, this is done through the test site. So for the SATs, you're going to send your test scores directly from the College Board account, and for the ACTs, directly through your ACT student account. So if it is required, if you want to send them, that's how that's going to happen. The test scores are not included on our transcript, and in some rare cases, we will occasionally get a request from a college very late in the process, sometimes in January or February. They will reach out and say, we're missing test scores, either because the student forgot or for some reason they weren't received properly. And in that case, we can send test scores, but they want mostly the official score report coming from the test agency. Okay. Now looking at the 6 o'clock position here, when we talk about application fees, we want to think about how much this is going to cost in total. And if you truly need a fee waiver, do not be afraid to ask an admissions office for that. And if they don't say yes, one, I would consider applying elsewhere. But two, you may want to consider coming to see your school counselor, as there is a generic application fee waiver through the National Association for College Admissions Counselors that allows a school counselor to verify that a student would be eligible for a fee waiver. And that is something we can offer our families. So please be in touch if this is you. Then it says down here, hit submit. No need to wait for teacher or counselor recommendations, transcripts, etc. So when you are ready to apply, when you have filled out your application, you've sent your test scores, and you're ready to go, submit your application. Make sure you proofread your application before you submit it, but you don't need to wait for us to send our materials or your transcript for you to apply to the college. The one thing to be aware of with this is that if you decide to apply to the college early, so let's say your deadline is November 1st, and you are ready to apply, and you apply by October 15th. Once you apply, for most colleges and universities, you are going to start getting automated emails from the admissions department indicating that you have an incomplete application. This usually sends students into a panic because they think that they haven't done something or the school hasn't done something. But the truth is, it is an incomplete application because we haven't yet reached the deadline. So we still have time to send in the transcript and the letters of recommendation, and we will continue to work to the deadline to do that. But please be aware that that is the case, is that if you get these automated emails, if you have applied before the deadline, that is the reason. The teachers and the school have until the same deadline you do to submit their materials. So until 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the day of the deadline. There are many colleges and universities out there. In fact, there are only two that I'm aware of, Brigham Young University and the military academies, that require all the supporting documentation by the deadline. Most colleges and universities look for supporting documentation to be in 2 to 3 weeks after the deadline. And that's because they know that sometimes these documents take time to get to them, particularly if they're test scores and they're coming from a testing agency and the recent test date was close to the deadline. But they also give that time frame because on the receiving end, in the college admissions department, there are people who are at a computer downloading and attaching supporting documentation to a student's application file. So that takes time. When you think about your application, I want you to think of that multiplied by 5,000, 10,000, 40,000, and in some cases 60,000 applications. That's a lot of manpower and a lot of time being put in to downloading the supporting documentation and attaching it to a digital application file. So please be aware of that as you're moving through this process. And again, hitting submit early is going to feel a little uncomfortable at first because you will start getting these automated emails. But as things arrive to the admissions department from the school and from your teachers and from the testing agency, those checkboxes will start to be completed. One thing to realize is that after you submit, and here I'm moving on to this bubble down here, it's the 5 o'clock position. After you submit, it is important to check your student portal. There are some colleges and universities, for example, UMass Amherst, that do not send those emails telling you that your application is not complete. They provide you with access to a student portal, which you are expected to check and be responsible for, and to see if there is anything that's missing and to take care of it accordingly. So please be aware of that. If you aren't getting automated emails after you hit submit, but you do have access to a student portal, that is something you should be checking frequently after you submit until you see that all of your supporting documentation has been received. Colleges do not mark something as received until it has been downloaded, so please keep that in mind. If you reach out to your counselor and they say, yes, we sent your transcript, the next best thing to do is to contact admissions, give them a call, email them. Likelihood is they are going to tell you that the document's been received, it just hasn't been downloaded and attached to your file. You're also going to want to make sure to check and respond to email. And this is where I'm going to suggest to our students, if you're not in good habits with checking email, try to start now. Set an alarm on your phone to check your email 2 to 3 times a day, or even once a day is fine. It's better than checking it once a week. There are schools out there who are going to send you emails that might have a certain time frame attached for a required response. One example is Holy Cross. The school counselors at Holliston went to visit Holy Cross admissions department a couple of years ago, and they made it clear that every now and then there is a request for more information from a student, and they will email the student, and that student has to reply within a certain time frame in order for their application to go forward with consideration. So that's really important to remember and a good reason to get in the habit of checking your email. Not to mention the school counseling department is sending out a lot of information at this time to students in the senior class with really important pieces of the process that need to be taken care of. So make sure to check your email. If your email is out of control, I know a lot of students say that after they took the PSATs, their email exploded with emails coming in from colleges all across the country. go ahead and create yourself a new email account. Naviance emails are now associated with your school email. It's a single sign-on with your Google account. But if you want to just create a new college application-focused email address and use that only for the Common App and any of the colleges you're applying to, you should do that so that you can stay on top of your emails and not be overwhelmed by the volume. Looking to this red box here, and the reason it is red is because this is really the only part in the process that the parents and guardians should be involved in, aside from potentially helping pay for the application fees. The parent brag sheet is something that the counselors have made available for parents to share information about their children. Students are still learning to be their best salesperson and often forget some of the more meaningful accomplishments that they've had over the years. And so parents and guardians are so helpful to us in being able to share stories that sometimes we have never heard. And so that is really what the brag sheet is about. It's about telling us the things that we might not already know about your child and how that might impact our storytelling in our letter of recommendation, which is really sort of a character reference. The FAFSA and CSS profile is a piece of financial aid that most parents and guardians will be involved in. We are recommending, because of the state of the economy and the uncertainty of what lies ahead as a result of COVID shutdowns, we are recommending that every family, no matter your material resources, complete the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid, and apply to a financial safety school, so a state school of some description, UMass, any of the state universities, Worcester State, Framingham State. It is really important to have the FAFSA filed, because if for some reason the bottom falls out of your financial situation and you need financial aid, if you have completed it, then you would be considered an on-time filer, and that is exceptionally important. Applying to a financial safety like a state school matters so that if in August of 2021, if something happens, and again, the finances fall apart in your family situation, you have another backup. If you have already applied to a state university, they will be more likely to reconsider you for either admission or allow you to enroll. So that's really something important to remember. The reason we highlight this in red is because every now and then we have parents who, with good intentions, create a Common App for their child, fill out the application, and submit it without their child knowing it. The child then fills out a Common App as well, and then things get lost and confusion ensues, and that can be really difficult to sort out. And so we really recommend that parents and guardians let their children drive this. There are going to be some of you who hear this and say, yes, but my child's doing nothing right now. I'm really worried. If your child is really latent in their excitement around this process, it is probably because they're just not quite ready. Will they be ready? Most of them will be. Some of them might decide that they need to take some time off, or they want to work after high school because they're feeling burnt out, and then they'll go to college. And many of them will go to college. Many of them will decide what they want to do or where they want to go once their peers start receiving decisions. So sitting back and allowing some of that process to happen naturally is very hard to do, but very important to do. We are, as school counselors, on top of who we haven't seen, and we are aware of those students. And behavior is communication. And as such, you really need to pay attention to that. If a student is lagging and your child is lagging in their interest and they're just really not coming to the table on this, it's probably because they're just not quite ready. And there is plenty of time left to be ready. We reassure you of this. We have done this for many years, and everything will work out. Okay. Now looking at the 3 o'clock position, we look at this matching. Okay, so this is a technical process, and I want to reassure you, you don't have to remember anything I'm saying, because I'm going to show you a resource that you're going to find particularly handy. So this, this document here, the college application process checklist, how do you get this? Well, it's available on the Holliston High School Counseling website, and this is a website that you can access through the Holliston High School website. If you go to Holliston High School, you pull up faculty and staff under the school counseling office, it will take you directly to the website. If you go to forms and resources, under college planning, this is actually not the updated website. We actually have a draft that we will be publishing, but you will see a lot of different links here in addition to the ones listed. And it will be listed down here under 2020 to 2021 application procedure checklist. And if you follow this checklist, it will take you through all the nitty-gritty, all the technical pieces of this process. You do not have to remember all of this. It provides screenshots with little guides and text boxes. You will see, as earlier I talked about sort of the question mark and the desktop icon, you'll see here that is discussed. So if you follow this step by step, or your child follows it step by step, you will discover that this is not as stressful a process as you might have originally thought. The students that we have that follow this checklist often say that was not hard at all, and thank goodness for that checklist. Do most of our students use this? I think a lot of them forget about it, but please use it as much as you can, because it is a great tool and resource. What you will also notice in this checklist on the last page is a deadline calendar. So this talks about when the school counseling department needs transcript request form, which we'll talk about in a second, as well as any other supporting materials that we need to be able to write our letters of recommendation. So that could be parent brag sheet, it could be, school counselors ask for potentially a draft of the essay, or an activities resume, or even like a little questionnaire. And because we didn't get to spend as much time with our current seniors in the spring as we normally would have, these things are probably going to be requested more often and are really important in the process. This calendar tells you what the due dates are, and these are not all of them. So, there are some schools that have very strange deadlines like November 7th or January 3rd that don't line up. But in general, these are the more popular deadlines, basically the first and the middle of the month. And then these are the dates by which students need to have their materials into the school counseling office. So this is important. So, checking out what your deadlines are, when you have to have the transcript request forms in, and all the other supporting materials. You can put this in your calendar. And obviously, if a student sends anything to us under 15 school days prior to the deadline, we will do our best to meet that request. However, we cannot guarantee it. All right. This gives us time to write quality letters of recommendation. It gives the teachers time to do the same. And below here, you'll see a summary of the responsibilities, counselor, teacher, and student. Okay, so this is a really helpful guide that I think you will find really helps you sail through this process a lot easier than you might have originally thought. Okay, going back. So the matching process. So Common App and Naviance talk to each other. From a technology perspective. The Common App has a section called FERPA. It's the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. And essentially what FERPA says is that your academic records belong to you. So you have to give us permission to send them to a college and to talk to the college about you. In this FERPA release section, you will also see that it asks you about waiving your rights to your letters of recommendation. This does not necessarily apply to the letters of recommendation that are written for every school. It applies when you show up at the school you enroll in. So let's say you enroll at Endicott College and you show up on your first day there and you say to admissions, I would love to see my letters of recommendation on file. If you waived your rights, they will say no. And if you did not waive your rights, they will hand them over and let you read them. Now, many people have different thoughts on whether you should waive your rights or not waive your rights. Some colleges don't care one way or another. And then there are other colleges that do. So in a conversation with Boston College and one of their admissions reps, they indicated that to them it's a red flag if a student does not waive their rights because it's a little suspicious. What is the student afraid is going to be said about them? And there is almost never a recommendation that is a negative one. So students shouldn't be afraid of that. But that is sort of the tone that not waiving your rights to read it leaves with some college admissions counselors. So it really is a student's personal decision, a family decision as to whether to waive the rights. But it's important to know that not every college sees it the same way. Some don't care and some do. In Naviance, under colleges I'm applying to, and I'm going to back out of this presentation again and go back to Naviance, you will see that there is this button here that says Match Accounts. When you click on that, it's going to ask you for your email address that you set up the Common App with and to confirm your date of birth. And once you've done that, the accounts will be matched and Naviance will pull over any schools that you have in Common App, and we will be able to send your transcripts. When we look at the transcript release form, again, students turn that in at least 15 days prior to the deadline. This is a form that used to be in paper. We have now made it a Google form. It is really important when you do submit a transcript release form to keep note of what schools you have submitted for. Just so that you know, somewhere in the notes section of your phone, we are working on trying to get email notifications set up so that you can receive confirmations, but it has not been completed yet. So for the time being, you're going to have to make a personal note. Once we receive that transcript release form, it's sort of the kickoff for the letter of recommendation writing, if one is required. So a transcript release form is only required for colleges that ask for your transcript. There are a number of schools out there, usually the much larger schools like University of South Carolina is an example, that ask for students to self-report their grades. And in a case like that, you do not need to submit a transcript release form because they don't want our transcript. There are schools out there that do want our transcript, but they want nothing else. So they do not want a counselor letter of recommendation. And when you complete the transcript release form, it will ask you what it is that you are requesting. Okay, so are you requesting a transcript? Are you requesting a counselor letter of recommendation? And are you requesting that your IEP and or your 504 is submitted to the college or university? Okay. The transcript release form, like I said, it sort of kicks off the counselor letter of recommendation if one is requested. And typically a student has a letter of recommendation required in the process. We encourage students to check the requirements for the admissions departments to which they are applying. How do you do that? You go to the college website, you look at admissions, and it will very clearly state if a counselor letter is needed, if a teacher letter is needed, if 2 teacher letters are needed, if one of the teacher letters would be preferred to come from a science or a math teacher. So you'll find all of that information on the admissions website. And as I said before, in that application procedure guide at the very end, you will see a calendar that shows you the date by which that form is due to be in the school counselor's hand in order for your materials to be submitted by the deadline. I'm going to back out again and I'm going to show you the request form. So it's a basic Google form. You go through, you answer some questions. You can request up to 5 transcripts in one go, and then you can come back into the form and do more if you want to do them all at once. On the next page, it asks you to agree to your understanding regarding certain application procedures, and then you can provide the information regarding your colleges that you're applying to. Here, at last, we get to teacher recommendation. All right, so the teacher submits the recommendation to the college. Every now and then a teacher might struggle to do that or can't do that because there are no colleges listed in a student's Naviance account when the teacher has written the letter, in which case the counselor can send the letter. How to ask for teacher recommendations if you haven't done so already. It says here ask in person. That would be ideal, although sometimes that puts people on the spot, particularly at the moment. People have more on their plate than they normally do, so we recommend emailing your teacher, asking them. And if you already asked them in the spring, now is a good time to follow up with a quick email just saying, thank you for agreeing to write my letter in the spring for my college recommendation. My earliest deadline is, and then you tell them when you're applying. You want to invite the teacher in Naviance and share your first deadline. So that's really important because when that teacher goes to log into their Naviance account, they're going to see your name listed in their queue of students to write for. And you also want to remember to write and send a thank you note. I think this is so important because teachers are writing these letters in their free time after they put their children to bed, or, at the end of a very long day, or even during their prep period when, they're also having to prep for classes. So it's really important to make sure you show your gratitude because they certainly don't have to say yes. This is not a requirement of the job. They can say no. So make sure to express your gratitude here. In terms of requesting a letter in Naviance, you're going to go to colleges to extend our session, if it will allow us. Oh, it's not going to allow us, so we're going to log back in. Okay, and we're going to go to View Student. Here, so under colleges, you're going to go to colleges I'm applying to. No, you're not. You're going to go to Colleges Home, and you're going to scroll down, and under Letters of Recommendation, you're going to click there, and you just click Add Request. And you can select a teacher. So if, for example, you'll see down here, these are the colleges and my colleges I'm applying to, and you'll see how many are required, how many they allow. And there are some colleges that only allow one letter to be sent. and require one letter, in which case you may decide that you want, a certain teacher to send to that particular school. But let's say in this case, I wanted Mrs. Frost to send a letter to all of my schools, and then you might say here, Mrs. Frost, thank you for writing my letter of recommendation. I truly appreciate it. My earliest deadline is 11/15/2020. Okay, and then you would hit submit request, and then Mrs. Frost gets an email that you have requested a letter of recommendation, and it goes into her queue. So when she logs into her Naviance account, she will see that you are listed there. Please do not do this process unless you have asked your teachers already by email or in person to write your letter of recommendation. Some students are saying, I didn't ask for a letter in the springtime, it must be too late, and it certainly isn't. Again, if you're giving 15 school days of lead time, which is 3 weeks, that should be plenty of time for a teacher to write a letter of recommendation. One thing I do want to make clear, though, is that when you are handling and managing your letters of recommendation, making sure that you're checking Naviance to see if the teacher letter of recommendation has been processed and submitted is really important, and following up with your teachers and making sure that, you're giving a little reminder. Maybe you're checking in, a week beforehand or a few days before the deadline to make sure that that letter has gone in. Okay? So that is the complete application. A lot of different pieces, but ultimately the student sending in the application and the test scores, the counselor sending in the transcript and the counselor letter of recommendation and potentially an IEP or 504, and the teacher sending in their recommendation. The testing agency sending the test scores potentially, and there you have a complete application. So those are the pieces that go together. We hope you have found this helpful. Please reach out to your school counselor if you have further questions, and we would love to hear your feedback regarding this presentation. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.